So when they say, go back to Africa, why? We made this Africa with our blood, sweat, and tears, okay? And so if it wasn't for us, where would you be?
Nod your head real back again, with a flow that make you wonder who else rap again. I'll snap again, make your favorite rapper spin, but this time I'll rhyme for my melanin, for Fred Brown to blacker skin. We was happening, past traumatic and we lasted in. Yale changed with resonance, the spark lit, and Barack became first black president. Symbolic of the years of the struggles we face, stripped us of our heritage, not a culture replaced. No other race of people can never say they relate, but when it comes to the culture, they all lead off our place. We raising the stakes, why? Cause they can't reach us. Our black too bold, they can't bleach us. Tried to kick us out of school, they can't teach us. But let Mr. Real give you game like a teacher. This for the culture, this for the culture, this for the culture. So put your fist up high in the sky. This for the culture, this for us, by us. This for the culture. So put your fist up high in the sky.
Slavery was the fabric of not only the American South, but the American as a whole. It was the backbone of this country. The only reason this country is as rich as it is today was off the backs of the enslaved.
So the institution of slavery was really cultivated in our country with economic gain. Capitalism, free market economy, that then they may not have called a free market economy, but clearly the ability to make money off of the free labor and perpetuate the wealth within the minority of the 1 to 3% is really what was driving the slave agrarian economy.
Here in the Piedmont, cotton was very vital to the plantations as well as tobacco. Unlike the Low Country where they were growing rice and indigo, here cotton was king. In fact, they referred to it as white gold because they felt like they struck it rich.
So when you look at how the country is being shaped and looking at Wall Street prior to the Civil War, there may have been abolitionists that sat in those offices, but they knew that their money is tied to the slave market, which is tied to the cotton, which is tied to the sugarcane, which is tied to rice and tobacco and goods, all being produced in the South. And then how does that not only shape our American capitalistic economy, but globally, internationally, how are other countries benefiting from our slave agrarian economy?
Some of the punishment that took place when they believed that a enslaved person had gotten out of line, of uppity, of being too smart. The beatings, the whippings, and then they turn around and put that salt in the wounds to cut their hands off if they didn't pick enough cotton, take their eyes out, knock their teeth out. Just so many things, so many ways they torture our people. And it used to be when I did the research, I would just cry. For us, how, you know, God, how could you allow this to happen? But then at some point, I still felt the agony of our ancestors, but then I started thinking, for those who did that, how could you possibly say that you were connected to a God and mistreat another human being like that?
But I think slave owners were fearful. The way that they maintained control on plantations and in towns and farms was through fear and strict crack of the whip.
What were the conditions of the enslaved when they arrived to the United States?
Um, Torn, violated spiritually, physically, emotionally. But I like to believe or think that they wasn't hopeless.
So I think when we think of the Civil War, we really have to include where's the humanity in all of it, and then recognize that the cause of the war is due to slavery. And this was the one way to eradicate it. And some may disagree and say, no, it was states' rights. Well, I think we can clearly see that it wasn't states' rights, but the states' rights to own slaves, right? To keep their property. And I think as Southern slaveholders in the beginning of the war, particularly in Middle Tennessee, you see them sending slaves south. And we do have records on that. But they're not sending them south to be protected as far as their physical protection. There's the slave owner protecting their property from being taken by an invading force known as the Federal Army, or the fear that their slaves would run to federal lines, which so many of them did. And I think as the slaveocracy began to lose its grip on the institution of slavery, they had to come to grips with recognizing these former slaves as people.
In the belly of the ship, I lost and found myself. In the belly of the ship, loved ones left behind, new kindred spirits I now find. In the belly of the ship. I won't worry about the past or the future. I'll find strength from within to go on as I struggle to find my place in this new world full of sorrow and hate. In the belly of the ship.
Reconstruction was one of the most interesting and traumatic periods in American history. Reconstruction began at different times in different places in the South. Typically, we look at Reconstruction from roughly around 1862 to its final end in 1877. The biggest problem of Reconstruction was the status of the 4 million formerly enslaved blacks in the South. Nobody really knew what freedom meant for them.
I believe that emancipation was both a gift and a curse to our people. Like you said, they had been enslaved for so many years. Where would they go? Where would they go? And a lot of times they stayed there because family was there, the fear of losing another family. Hey, I'll just stay here and take my chances. And then to have that mentality that you can't do without the white man anyway. So some of us bought into that, and we still buy into it, that we take on that childlike mentality that I need them to take care of me in order to survive.
You're being taken from your homeland, you are being introduced to a new culture, but it's not even an introduction of the culture. It is basically being forced upon you, and your religion has been stripped. You're being told that you're coming from a place where you're superior to a place where you're automatically told you're inferior for no reason but the color of your skin. So what has happened through the years since slavery? You see a breakup of families. You see the anger, the aggression, the helplessness.
And so we stay there and we stay there, and then we even convince our children to stay there. Because what are you going to do? If you leave this plantation, we don't know the world outside of this. What you going to do? How you going to make it? And so people saw the freedom as a curse, as a curse. And there were those who say, hey, I'm going to make it. What we're looking at is that, okay, both parties were free physically, but not mentally. And so that's how it's a curse, because no one was there to, for lack of a better word, to speak that life into them, to say, we can make it. We can make it. We made it this far. We can make it without them even still, yeah.
There's a lot of change during the Reconstruction era that leads then into the rise of the Southern Democrats in the 1880s and 1890s following the end of Reconstruction. And then we quickly go right into an era of Jim Crow. And so I would imagine that African Americans, though very anxious to continue to build communities and to understand their history, they may face the reality that their contribution, though extremely significant, ends up being downplayed because they're still considered to be an inferior race.
There's so many experiences that are out there that stretches far beyond Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks. You know, those are our rock stars, those are our heroes, right? Those are the people that you hear every February for the whole month. But I find that people can relate, that people do relate more to people that remind them of them, or people that are in their families. So servicemen, professors, teachers, nurses, janitors, I mean, the list goes on and on. Individuals who served in the Army. Let's highlight those everyday individuals that do not get the critical acclaim that a lot of other individuals get and that aren't in the history books. And let's put them in the history books because their history is just as important as our national figures that we see every February during Black History Month.
As I stated earlier, when I growing up here, I grew up basically in the rural area, out in the country. We lived on a farm that my grandparents owned. And we weren't sharecroppers or anything of that nature, but you know, we lived on our own land. And they were hardworking people, like like most of them were at that time. We grew tobacco, cotton, corn, things of this nature. We had our own animals and stuff like that. You know, we was pretty much self-sufficient. When we come to town, we just come to town to get like flour or sugar, or my grandmother might come to town to buy a pattern to make a dress or something like that.
Your parents were always abreast and kept you abreast of that, of what to do and what not to do and how to conduct yourself, how not to get sassy. Impotent was a word. You've heard that term, impotent. The white folks call it impotent. That's an impotent Negro. That means your disposition, like they classified Emmett Till, you know, being, and then he would come, and the average Southerner wouldn't conduct himself like that because he was very, very familiar and understood the rules of engagement, if you will. My parents, my mother in particular, and Dad, my mother, because she would caution us all the time, and don't make no trouble, don't go in there expecting anything. You always told not to make trouble. Trouble meant making white folks mad. When they get mad, that's trouble.
My grandfather, you know, he was, even though he wasn't formally educated, he was a smart man, especially when it came to agriculture and things of this nature. But he was telling me, you know, he was saying, you know, son, you know, I don't want you to, you know, get hurt or get missing or anything of this nature. So don't feel like, you know, he said, you know, that when they say something to you, you have to bow up and, you know, say something back to them or whatever, you know, even though you know that you're right, but, you know, the things that they could do to you, you know, and we want you to come home. my grandfather, almost 60 years old, saying yes sir, no sir to a young man 21, 22 years old, doesn't even have half the knowledge that he has yet. They bring my grandfather to his house, to their houses, and he rescue all the dead flowers, and make their yard look so immaculate and everything and stuff. And but yet and still, he's they want him to kind of bow down in that situation, circumstances. Understand? He understood that that was the norm of the times and whatever. And again, too, he's wanting to come home himself and everything. So
my parents came from Richmond County, North Carolina, to Roanoke, Virginia. My mother lived in Montgomery County, and of course Daddy lived in Richmond County. And Daddy got into a little scrap. I won't say it was a fight, but he was making noise out in the street. And some white people decided that they were gonna discipline him. So Daddy gets on the train and tells his brother to tell my mother to meet him in Norwood because he was going to Virginia. And he was supposed to go to work at the Norfolk and Western, which is called Norfolk and Southern now, Norfolk and Western Railroad, and be hired as a fireman. But when he got to the station to apply for the job, they asked him what nationality was he. He said at that time, mostly I said I was a Negro, and said the man who was questioning him about the job, he said I had my recommendation in my pocket, and I gave it to him and said he just tore it up right in front of me when he found out I was a Negro, and I did not get the job, but he said, we'll give you a job as a laborer. And that was in 1919.
And they would tell me, don't take the road. And initially I was like, why? Why can't I take the road? Because, it's, for one thing, if there's any snakes, I'm gonna see them on the road. That was my main concern. But then they sat down and explained to me about these night riders, these guys, hooligans or whatever you want to call them, riding through. And they see you walk inside the road, snatch you, at the least you might get beat up. At the worst, you might disappear. Never find you. Or when they do find you, it'd be like almost like an Emmett Till situation, So they really impressed it upon me. Don't take the road, especially at night. And like again, like my sister, she wasn't even alive. That was out for her. You're not going nowhere. Because again, they snatch young girls or whatever, they get raped, anything, brutalized or whatever. And it was a learning experience. Cause especially too, as I got older, grown man sometimes, I would be walking the road, at night, and here comes the car, and you're wondering, are they gonna stop? They're gonna keep going? Or they gonna stick a shotgun out the window and just, blow me in the ditch, And, you get off the road as far as you can, you get down, almost down in the ditch, preparing yourself for whatever might come, and and it's, I don't know, it's kind of disheartening to know, that you see these people during the day, and then at night they're out riding around trying to find some way to do you some kind of harm.
I can recollect a few incidents where we had some KKK problems during my time. There were more during my dad's time that I heard about. Of course, we heard some actual lynchings. My dad remembered actual lynchings in York, South Carolina. But an incident that I can remember was one of the white men being involved with a black woman, which was one of my family members, Steel Girl. And we heard that the Klansmen had rode down through the community that night warning the black people about that mixing. You know how race mixing was looked upon at that time. And it got to be news when it gets around the community that someone, night riders came out that night to Cousin Nora's house to let them know that this was not accepted and was not appreciated, black-white mixing, although the white men mixed all the time on the plantation.
Well, my father moved to Boley, Oklahoma in 1910, and he had been born and lived in Kilgore, Texas, and had been to school at Wiley College in Marshall, Texas. and he had some peaches that he was sending out on a boxcar. And he sent 2 men down to load the peaches. And when he got there, they were still sitting down and had not loaded them. And he asked why, and they said there was a white man in the boxcar that said the boxcar was his. And so my father said he went and showed him the bill of lading and told him it was his boxcar. So the man said, I don't let niggas talk to me like that, and I'll jump out there on you. So my father said, jump. That night, my father and his brothers were all on his porch, and he said they rode up and down on horses, and he told them, you can ride up and down as many times as you like, that's a public road, but the first man that turns in my gate is a dead man.
See, this is Martin Stadium. Black-owned stadium in Memphis where I played first year. That's Satchel Paige right there. Right there. That's Satchel Paige.
The great Satch.
I made this book. This is the big book. That's Roy Campanella. That's Don Newcomb, the great catcher for the Brooklyn Dodgers. And he was a great pitcher for the Brooklyn Dodgers. Now that Goose Tatum, the world famous Goose Tatum, played with the Harlem Globetrotters. He was the clown prince of basketball. Don't ever forget his name, Reese Goose Tatum. He the most famous of them all. He played center. He was the greatest hook shot artist ever was. Here I am. I made the big book. Right there.
I just asked him, so. That's you.
That's me. That's the clown prince of baseball, Prince Joe Henry. This is my son. He got drowned.
Oh, wow.
That's the picture over there on the wall.
Sorry to hear that.
He got drowned in a whirlpool.
Here in.
Yeah. He had a seizure. It's my man right there.
How did you all
You know what he said?
How did you all become acquainted?
Yeah, this was at the Library of Congress. And Willie Mays was there.
Oh, wow.
And Chris Tucker was there. A whole lot of people there. You know what he said? When I told him about these white people taking my folks' property, he looked into it. They told him statute of limitations and run out. He said, bull. He said, I can't handle them down here, but I'll bring them up to my office in Washington, in Alexandria, talking about sex. Everybody want to take a picture of that. I make the trip worthwhile.
I know that's right.
This was when I was inducted to the Negro League baseball. Saxton, Missouri. When we got there, they rolled out the red carpet. We played this local team. We beat them 16-1. When the game was over, the restaurants were closed. We went back to the hotel. We had one room where we changed clothes. The manager told us to get our clothes. We couldn't stay there because they were filled up. Now, we made reservations 2 weeks ago. We had to ride 75 miles till we found railroad tracks. When you find railroad tracks, black people live across the tracks. Well, when we got there, it was about 12:30, 1 o'clock. We found a hotel there if that's what you call it. 4 cinder blocks held the bed up. 3 of us, I'm a catcher, and I stayed with pitchers most of the time so we could talk. 3 of us had to sleep in this double bed. So by me being the smallest, I had to sleep on the outside. So every time I try to put my left foot up, get back out a little bit, trying to hug me. It was funny. But the next morning, I slept with 1 foot out on the floor most of the night. So the next morning when we went downstairs for the breakfast in this so-called kitchen, Satchel Paige looked at me and said, "Larry, I didn't know you got hurt last night. I was hobbling because that butt bone was so hard from sleeping with 1 foot out on the floor." When we go in restaurants, the people got up and walked out. The waitresses come to the glass, peep out, and go back. 10 minutes later, they did the same thing. And we had been through with this before. So finally, after about close to an hour, we got up and left. And that went on even as far as up into the Dakotas. In 1958, when Ted Raspberry, the man I spoke with in Chicago about trying out for his baseball team, Detroit Stars, it was held in Birmingham, Alabama. Bull Connor was the police chief. He and his men and German shepherds, those leashes, don't back up from those dogs, boy. Right there at our ankles.
The worst time came in the 60s when there were Ku Klux Klan marches and all that kind of thing. In the 60s, which was a bad time when blacks integrated, wanted to integrate, or tried to integrate the ice cream place, and Floyd McKissick was in charge of all of that. Well, I had been Floyd McKissick's wife's senior mentor at Howard. And so right now, all of her children call me aunt, and I'm the godmother for one of them, so, yeah.
Prince Edward County, Virginia, the only county in America that closed its public schools rather than integrate them, where Negro and white fought over the interpretation of the Constitution for 10 bitter years, where every resident had to decide for himself where the law lay, in court decrees or in his own personal attitudes and beliefs.
These children are members of a lost generation. I'm Reverend Griffin, minister of that church, and I know. Sometimes I look at them, I wonder if the whole struggle was worth it. Because in a sense, what we did to them is undeniable. We sacrificed them to prove they were equal.
12 miles from Fargo.
Well, I'm not about to sacrifice my children. I mean, I want them to get a good education, but I really believe they can't get a good education in an integrated school. At least not in the South. It just won't work in the South.
I remember when they began to talk about integrating the schools. I was 7th or 8th grade, and they was going to choose students to integrate. It was 7 of us that was requested, given an opportunity to say, you will integrate at this middle school, at this junior high school. And all of us were pretty much challenged, not knowing what we were going into. But knowing the fact that we were asked to do it and they would support us in doing it, we all concurred to do so. So we entered Eastwood Junior High School that fall. And the crowds of parents, white parents, angry parents, seemingly just surrounded the entire school lot. As we entered the school, we found that we were not only just had issues going in, we had issues going out. Of course, we were told to sit at the back of the classrooms. We were pretty much segregated within the school because none of us would be in the same homerooms or have classes together. They made sure that if we saw each other, they saw us coming in together and they see us going out together. But never did we have lunch together or have classes together. So we pretty much felt isolated within that system. But things began to change as we began to play sports. You know, I found that when we all went for football. 3 of the 4 of us would play football. After the first week or so of practicing football, we noticed a change among the athletes, where they were looking at us sort of as aliens within their arena. Now they began to adjust differently because they saw that maybe we could play and help them win ball games. Or maybe they respected the fact that we could hit just as hard as they could hit. Whatever the case may be, we noticed that there was a change in how we were treated among athletes, where we would have to go home in groups and probably fight our way back to our community. All of a sudden now, football players were walking with us, telling other students to leave us alone. All of a sudden, seemingly the teachers that were scoring us were treating us a little bit different because we're athletes. They saw us as being something closer to who they wanted us to be.
Well, the reason I didn't want integration was because of the fact that I never had a problem with the way my kids were in school, or the way we were in school. The teachers, when we were in school, or our neighbors, if they even saw us going down the wrong side of the street, they would deal with it. But when we accepted integration, we started to turn everything that we were doing for ourselves over into the hands of them. And what started to happen then was that we started to lose our togetherness. Let's go back to, late 50s, early 60s, when we, as a people, and they call it the Civil Rights Movement, we were on the same page. We were together as a people. I remember we would leave, I organized youth council of NAACP at Ligon High School. We, on Saturday morning, would meet, I was a student at Shaw University then, we would meet at Shaw University and we would go downtown and sit in. But that's not what I really wanted. All I wanted, if I can do the same job this guy over here is doing, don't let color have anything to do with it. Pay me the same thing you're paying him. I have been working for 75 cents an hour, and the white guys doing the same work I was doing was getting $1. And we were doing the very same work.
When I got out of service and got home, after feeling pretty good with the comrades that I was with, and I got off the bus and walked into the station, and I had my uniform on. I went in and got me some water out of the fountain. And the ticket, and walked over to, boy, don't you see that white water? You can't drink out of that fountain. And I had my uniform on. You can imagine how I felt being told when I got back home in my uniform, going out and training for this country to sacrifice my life and get back here and they tell me I can't drink white water.
And it could be frustrating, like you say, angry, you know, and you don't have nowhere to vent. You know, you come home and tell your parents them about it, but they're trying to tell you that's how it is, son. You know, that's the way it is down here. You know, and you trying to wonder why is it like this? You know, I'm tired of these people doing all this kind of stuff to me. You know, and it really is frustrating. You know, like I say, you know, we had to park on Railroad Street. You know, again, my grandmother, when I would go to town, she had a quart jar, you know, for me to pee in. You know, if you got to pee, then you always hear them. You're like, we get ready to go somewhere. Make sure you go to the bathroom. I'm like, you know, what's up with how we got to go to the bathroom? But see, you got to town there, but there wasn't a bathroom where you could go. You know, like it is now. You know, I see people now. You know, they just walk in the restaurant, and go to the bathroom, and walk right on back out. You know, we couldn't do that. You know, we couldn't do that. You know, we could do it, but then are you willing to face the consequences for doing that? You know,
the thing that stands out in my mind is when my young child, the youngest of my children, I have 5 children, I went over to his school because he had come home that one evening and told me, he said, they called me Pat instead of Mama. He said, Pat, so we were sitting around in a group and this teacher wanted to know who wanted to read. And he said, all of us held up our hands, we wanted to read. And she said, eeny, meeny, miny, moe, catch a nigger by his toe. So he came home and told me about it. And I was so angry, but of course the school was closed then. So the next day, I was working at GE at this time. The next day, I was at work and looked like it just got on my mind so bad. I left work and I went to the school and I asked to see this teacher. Her name was Motley. I won't even dignify her with Miss Motley. And I told the principal what had happened. So she sent for the teacher. And of course, when the teacher came, she said, no, I didn't say that. He just said that because I wouldn't let him read. I said, no, and I told her, no, that was not the way he told me. He wouldn't have told a lie on you. So then it still makes me mad today when I think of it. So then she said, the principal takes the teacher to a room and leaves me out there standing and talking to the secretary. So I said, you know, how angry I was. And so I beat my fist on the desk like this. I said, you have mistreated me all my life, but you will not mistreat my child. And I was so angry. I know if I had had a gun, something would have happened. I know that, because it still makes me angry today.
We believe that all men are created equal, yet many are denied equal treatment. We believe that all men have certain unalienable rights, yet many Americans do not enjoy those rights. We believe that all men are entitled to the blessings of liberty, yet millions are being deprived of those blessings, not because of their own failures, but because of the color of their skin. The reasons are deeply embedded in history and tradition and the nature of man. We can understand without rancor or hatred how this all happened, but it cannot continue.
This is Alabama River, and it goes all the way to Mobile. And Mobile is where in 1772, the first slave ship that came through these waters came through Mobile. It was called the African or either the Africana. The last slave ship was, I forget the year, I think it was 1863, I'm not sure. And that was the Cadilda. And that was the last known slave ship that we know that came through here. Man, how many bodies? This is the Edmund Pettus Bridge. This is where they Bloody Sunday took place in 1965, March 7, 1965. It was one of the first attempts of trying to get over the bridge. A lot of people think Martin Luther King was here that day. He wasn't here. Matter of fact, he tried to tell the people to wait until he returned back to the city, but the spirit of the people was so high they couldn't wait, and so they decided to go ahead and march. When they got to the other side of the bridge, the state troopers were waiting for them, and that's when the beating took place. A lot of people think that the beating just ended here on the bridge. They followed the people all back into the community. They went into churches beating people. They chased folks all back this way. Matter of fact, my mom has a friend, she couldn't even walk back here for a couple of years because the memories of being chased by the state troopers and the posse just came flaring up, you know. And so again, we were talking about the trauma that the people experienced and that wasn't necessarily dealt with here. And you have people coming from all over the world to cross this bridge, and it means different things to different people. During the 50th, it was so many people here that people actually started marching that Saturday, and you can just see hundreds and thousands of people just going back and forth. The day of the march, where they did the reenactment of the march, people had started early, and a lot of people thought it was disrespectful because they were waiting for the dignitaries to come. But again, the spirit of the people, they had to move. They had to move when the spirit told them to move. And a lot of people were marching, not just for the civil rights during the 50th. Some people were crossing this bridge on behalf of a loved one. Somebody was dealing with cancer. I mean, people had different reasons why they had felt the need to cross over this bridge.
The pen said, "I march for jobs and freedom." Everyone who marched wore one. The 200,000 people who were to march that day were held together by the strength of that pen.
This morning, Father, we ask if thou would hear the prayers of thy children everywhere. Those who are burdened down because of conditions here in America, and those who are confused about how they should treat their fellow man. Oh God, we ask for those who have hatred in their heart to touch their hearts right now, Father, and somehow fill their hearts with love. And oh God, make this land in which we live be a land of plenty and a land of righteousness. Oh God, may we recognize this land a land of freedom for every race. Oh Father.
In the South, you will see people who were protesting during those days doing like this, because the mean spirits, you know when I say mean spirits, you know what I mean. They would actually take their billy stick and hit women across their breast. Then, if you see the professional men who march all the time, they're padded between their legs, because if you see some of the pictures in the background, one man is holding a black man's leg and another man is holding the other one, and they're beating him between his legs. Every move that was done during the civil rights movement had a purpose, and people don't always explain those purposes. We held hands not only out of love and joy and sticking together. It was to protect each other and our bodies, and if one go down, the other could go down with them.
Although we've made progress in this country, we still have those who like to remind us that we're still black. We've had a president elected for 8 years in this country that was African American, who brought this country off the heels of another depression. But yet the accolades as to the accomplishments he's made has been downplayed to the fact as if he didn't exist. And I wonder, as we go back in history, all the way back to George Washington, how often do we find that because of who they are, where they're from, who their fathers and mothers were, that we downgrade them because of the color of their skin?
Can you imagine being tortured? Can you imagine being chained to someone who has died or maybe are in the process of dying? Can you imagine rats biting at your body day after day, night after night? Can you imagine that if you found the courage to take your destiny into your own hands by starving yourself to death, they had a way of fixing you by knocking your teeth out, putting hot coals down your throat, or maybe just for the heck of it, they would nail your mouth open. But yet, in spite of those circumstances, our people never allowed their spirits to be broken.
There's a feeling within us, especially when we all gather together in a group. It's like somebody lit a fire, and it's up to me to keep the fire lit.
We had to do what we had to do in order to live.
And as long as there are those who put the Lord first, we're going to continue to survive.
Irregardless of what might happen to me or what situation I might get in, because when I got out of the military and came back home, I had some hard times. I stayed here in the house, but I come to understand this is ours, mine. And as long as I'm, careful with it, you can't take this away from me. When I'm gone, this is gonna still be McNeil land. And to me that means something. I've actually, put my hands in that dirt over there, and spent days out here in the hot sun, walking up and down them roads and everything and stuff. So, it gives me a connection.
Yes, some of our people knew all doing that they were never slaves. They knew that they were in an enslaved situation, but they were not slaves. And they had that spirit that they empowered themselves by saying, you can shackle my body, but you can't shackle my mind, you can't shackle my heart, you can't shackle my spirit, you can't shackle my dreams. Now you may call yourself my master, but I'm not a slave. And so what gives some of us, even still today, that type of mentality? That in spite of the circumstances, we know who we are, we know our strength, and we know that God is on our side. So we keep pushing and pushing where others just don't see any hope at all. So where do that come from?
I feel at 98 a bit angry and discouraged because a lot of things that I thought were settled, I find out are not. That young whites that I thought would know our history really don't know it, and they are shooting us and killing us, and policemen. But I think we will always fight back.
The American South means that if you can, stay in the South. That's where it started. Don't run. As much of your South as it is the white man's. Our forefathers, like I said, built this country. And stay here and fight it out. Stand up what's rightfully yours.
We built this country with our blood, our sweat, and our tears. We taught them a lot of things that they did not know how to do. So when they say, go back to Africa, why? We made this Africa with our blood, sweat, and tears, okay? And so if it wasn't for us, where would you be? Where would you be? What things would you have accomplished without us? And I think dang, I don't know where this is coming from, brother. For the first time, I'm saying we need to take ownership of this country because we built it. We built this country. This is our country. No, I'm not going anywhere. You go. You go. And so, dang, I don't know where that's coming from, y'all. I don't know where that's coming from. Because I'm one of those people, I want to go back to Africa. I thought this time in my life I'd be living in Africa, but my ancestors are rising up right now. And they said, we built this country. We built this country. This is our country. Where would they be? We are the spirit. We are the spirit of this country. We give it the rhythm, we give it the life, we give it humanity. So where would they be without us?
You are now listening to the new Black Anthem. Please act accordingly. Nod your head real back again with a flow that make you wonder who else rap again. I'll snap again, make your favorite rapper spin, but this time I'll rhyme for my melanin. For Fred Brown to blacker skin, we was happening past traumatic and we lasted in. Yell change with resonance, the spark lit and Barack became first black president. Symbolic of the years of the struggles we face, stripped us of our heritage, now the culture replaced. No other race of people can never say they relate, but when it comes to the culture, they all lead off our place. We raising the stakes, why? Cause they can't reach us. Our black too bold, they can't bleach us. Tried to kick us out of school, they can't teach us. But let Mr. Real give you game like a teacher. This for the culture, this for the culture, this for the culture. So put your fist up high in the sky. This for the culture. This for us, by us. This for the culture. So put your fist up high in the sky. I'ma do this one for the kings and queens. Speak the truth with love like Dr. Martin's dream. Some hard-headed, you can't tell them things. They eyes closed, I stay woke, sleeping ain't everything. For the culture, why I do it, know you're listening. Black and proud, say it loud, or you're missing thing. Built the nation on our back, and the flag we the seen. Black gold worth the world more than the gift of me. From royalty to a slave, and I got free. Keep thriving, no Jim Crow gon' stop me. I throw a fist to my brother cause he got me. We in the streets and all Black Panther mob, we saw no just us. We knew it's just us. Gotta lift us up, in God we trust. They ain't ease up and we push back, try to break us, but you know that black don't crack. And that this for the culture, this for the culture, this for the culture. So put your fist up high in the sky. This for the culture, this for us, by us. This for the culture. So put your fist up high in the sky. We the culture and the world know it. We be shining and I'm all for it. We the people gotta learn for ourselves. We can do our own thing, we don't need no help. Cause if we did it before, we can do it again. And we flourished before cause we was cool in our skin. Come together, we always destined to win. Let's give the youth a new reason to lift up their chin. Stand together, put the village back and raising them. Show them love, help them fight against the rage in them. The world killing, drugging, and caging them. Told them to lead, the only one that's paying them. And if you don't shoot the jumper, gotta hit the block. Black child, you're great, the lies gotta stop. Don't ever let nobody tell you that you ain't worth nothing. Chase your dream to the future, then you be the front runner of the coach. This for the culture, this for the culture, this for the culture. So put your fist up high in the sky. This for the culture, this for us, by us. This for the culture. So put your fist up high in the sky. Let that fist be a constant reminder of the strength of our unity. We'll rise together or separately we'll fall.